Hello, folks. So we continue with the series on each planet and different rashis in each zodiac sign and what it means for you. Today, we're going to speak about Mars's placement in your birth chart. So let's get into this. So first, let's talk about what is Mars, right? We'll try to understand this first. Mars, of course, rules both Aries and Scorpio, right? It represents deep transformation because it's connected to Scorpio. It aspects the 4th and 8th houses from where it sits, from where it's situated in your chart, right? So we can surmise from this instantly that it has a connection to death and rebirth. It has the instinct to destroy whatever it touches. And this is actually essentially the Scorpio vibration, right? Fourth is comforts, home, land, birthplace, property, the instinct to protect, right? That's the Aries vibration. Mars is our ability to overcome challenge. In fact, a very dignified Mars placement means that you fare well in the face of challenges. Mars is our strength to fight. If not well placed or afflicted, it can mean that you may get into fights and you don't know which battles to pick, or maybe you don't know why you're fighting. But if it's well disposed, then you're fighting to protect or to take a stand for something or someone. It could be for loved ones. It could be for those people who cannot fight for themselves, right? And that's the Aries vibration, right? This is actually Mars's move through cone sign. It's home. It's natural essence. Aries is the first house. It represents our physical body, the blood, vessels, energy. So all activities related to animal survival, from hunting to eating to sex to competing, that's Aries vibration. Mars is the agent of life and death. Aries is the first sign, which is the beginning of life. Scorpio is death, which is the ending of life. Scorpio 8th house is the ability to transform that which we are born in, which is the first house, which is Aries. Yes? It is also the house where we see our material resources, particularly those coming from others, right? Perhaps your partner. It is the house where we see intense changes. It is also the house that we see setbacks and obstacles and disease, right? 8th house is surgery, accidents, chronic disease, all the things that change us. These are all the things that change us, right? That's that death and rebirth. So it gives life a complete makeover. Death being, of course, the ultimate transformation. So strong Mars is going to show you the ability to master this transformation, basically, right? How well? Like, do you have the strength to do this? And it can be through deeper knowledge, right? Occult secrets, guidance from ancestral spirits. That's all 8th house. Mars is also a significator of blood, our bloodline. It's referred to as Bhumikarka or Bhumiputra. So it signifies like the earthly, like land, earthly possessions. Right? And in this way, it represents ability to acquire property, material resources. Traditional stance is that Mars is the protector. right? To secure borders, to help the king manage his kingdom. So with a good Mars in the chart, you'll be able to perform tasks of security and protection regarding your family, regarding your home. Mars is the Karaka for the 3rd and the 6th house, both Dushtana houses, both difficult houses. So strong Mars can help you defeat enemies, competition, and problems, just generally problems, right? With a fearless attitude. It will give you courage. It will give you the ability to take initiative and meet your goals. So the life significations of Mars, let's talk about that for a minute. That's brothers. It's like military. In Nadi astrology, we also see the husband as signified by Mars. It also represents anger, scandal, enemies, competitors, disputes, and disease. You will also be able to face challenges, to confront problems with a good Mars placement. Right? You'll have the ability to solve problems using logic rather than emotions, if it's well disposed, right? That's the higher vibration of Mars, which is why Mars is exalted in Capricorn, right? Being such a dry environment. Though with this placement, it can cause problems in relationships, because in relationships you need emotions, right? There's no emotion in Capricorn. It represents the graveyard. Therefore, Mars can perform dispassionately in Capricorn. And as such, it is exalted. Right? I mean, think about a soldier. A soldier cannot perform well if they're emotional, right? Or if they're attached to comforts, right? Mars in Capricorn will shed all of that. A well-placed Mars will give you energy, drive, and ambition to do your karma, to take action without fear, without doubt. It will provide the strength to deal with any challenges that life throws at you. Agni is the element associated with Mars for this reason, which is fire. Right? Fire is all about beginnings. It's the energy that is required to start anything new, to push you toward action to achieve your goals. Right? It's the higher vibration of fire actually is to burn attachments and desires in the material world. That is the highest kind of vibration. And how is it? Through tapas, usually through like some kind of austerities and spiritual practices. Right? And why? Why to burn, and essentially to burn the tamasic tendencies, to release, in order to achieve release from the bondage of the cycle of birth and death, which is the ultimate goal and the highest vibration of a dignified Mars. Also, one final thing, Mars is, of course, the signification for celibacy, right? Mars being named after Angarika, god of war, right? So, again, it's not a good planet for sustaining relationships. In fact, it is the worst planet next to Ketu for sustaining relationships. Celibacy is associated with the 6th house, a place where the highest vibration is purification, not relationship. It is the house of enemies, and from a spiritual perspective, these are what? Like the Shadripus, right? Greed, lust, envy, attachment, pride, anger. Enemies of the mind. Being 6th house is Karaka of Mars, it's where your attention is. It's on conquering your enemies. whether it's the ones in the mind or whether it's the ones that have manifested in the material reality, whatever it is, right? Whereas 12th house is getting out of celibacy, right? That's the logic behind looking at the 12th to see what partner we're attracting. When is the partner coming, right? So do check the D1 and D9 placement of Mars to understand how it's functioning. Also check D60 for further clues. D9 is the evolved, purest vibration of your Mars, and D1 is basically how it has manifested in the material world. The best placement for Mars are the fire signs, right? Because that's where it expresses its energy with ease. It belongs to the fire element. And of course, it's highest vibration in Capricorn. So of course, do share your comments and experiences with your Mars placement, right? So let's discuss each one of them now. First, we start with Aries. This is Mars's Mul Trikon side, its own house, its office, if you want to say. Why office? Because it performs very well there. It does good work there. It's a natural essence of its energy. It's the lordship. So Aries is the place where Mars's nature gets expressed in its pure essence. What is that? To protect, to fight, and to compete. Right? It can make you a hard worker as well, and you'll have a problem with having a work-life balance. You tend to be, very much into your work. So here you can easily get addicted to work, right? This placement also suggests that you should go it alone. That can mean independent work. Your own business, for instance. You are direct, honest, and act with a moral compass. And you are too proud, actually, to be unethical. You're a fighter, and usually you come out on top after navigating life's challenges. You have the ability to solve problems, yours and others. Mars in Aries makes you fearless, and you're good at defending others and yourself. You like power positions, and you want to be respected. You're competitive, dominant, but you have the energy to get things done, whatever task is in front of you. You have a thirst for adventure, novelty, excitement, and you can be attracted to danger and dangerous situations. At times, you may read things as danger and go into survival mode, defensive mode, right? So in this way, it's actually an excellent placement for somebody who wants to be in the military. If it's an afflicted Mars, and this can lead to accidents resulting in scars, especially on the head. You can also be harsh toward others, perhaps too direct. Mars in Aries can make you impatient with others. If connected to a relationship, house, or planet, then here it can cause problems, definitely. Right? So it can be sitting in your first house, 7th, 8th, 12th, right? That's what we call the Manglik dosh. But here it's quite sort of strengthened. It could be sitting next to Venus. You have Mars and Venus conjunction in Aries. That can be difficult for a relationship. If you have this placement, you're a woman, you will attract willful, dominant partners. You tend to have a lot of energy at your disposal, which is great. You can be good at sports. It's best to have a workout regimen with this placement. You're naturally a hard worker. So how about Mars in Taurus? Well, this is not a friendly sign for Mars. This placement makes you argumentative, and there can be fights ensuing in the family environment. Because here speech can be harsh, especially with those with close loved ones, right? Taurus is the sign of prosperity, so it can give good resources. You can gain through women with this placement. In fact, access to resources can come through women. It's a good placement for careers where you're dealing with money, where you're dealing with investments. In relationships, there are some challenges. You can be too sensual, sexual, and too focused on the pursuit of pleasure. Again, see if it's connecting to the relationship houses, right? 1, 7, 8, 12. You can be jealous and possessive, and this can cause problems. You tend to cling on to people, to family, to your home. Aries is the 12th and Scorpio is the 7th house for you, right? So this can inflame your anger and passion in relationships. Mars likes to feel in control, but in relationships, you can feel out of control. Watch what you eat with this placement, as you can quickly gain weight. Mars in Taurus makes you very determined, but also it can result in being too, like for you, you can come across as being too stubborn, right? Because it's a fixed sign. There can be trouble with early family life. In extreme cases, or if afflicted, then there can be violence, domestic abuse in the early upbringing. So how about if you have Mars in Gemini? Well, this is another difficult place for Mars, right? Because the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. Mercury has an inimical relationship with Mars. They're in essence very different energies, right? Mercury and Mars. Your speech here can be aggressive and harsh. And you can be cutthroat in communications, even warlike. This position can bring conflicts and litigation. If Mercury is well placed, then you're straightforward in your dealings with others. But more often than not, there can be like a lot of like hot air blowing. So all talk and no action. Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you know, that kind of thing. Air element is not a good environment for Mars. Mars is also the Karaka for the 3rd house. So Mars in Gemini can give you courage. It might be misplaced courage, but you will have courage. This placement makes you good at communication, and you can master a variety of skills. At times you can overdo things, leading to extreme behavior and trying to solve problems. Again, resulting in like unnecessary fights and argumentation. Resulting in unnecessary argumentation, right? Mars and Gemini, we can see that. This placement can also make you quite sarcastic. So this can mean saying things inappropriately and out of place. It will make you good at flirting. Relationship with siblings can be difficult with this Mars placement. There can be too much competition or conflict. 3rd houses are subconscious, right? So this can make you inclined to pick like petty fights, which don't have like a real substance. It can make you inclined to gossip, just overblowing small matters, right? Making it like a mountain out of a molehill, that thing can be here. It is an excellent placement for travel, however. It's good for building foreign connections. You can have good connections with this placement, in fact. You can lack like focus though due to Mercury's lordship. Health can be harmed also with this Mars placement. Particularly the mind can feel agitated and restless. So Mars in Cancer. Now this is of course a sign where Mars gets debilitated, even though it's the sign of its friend, the moon, right? Mars in Cancer, I mean, why? You know, why do we call this a debilitated Mars? Because Mars in Cancer wants comfort, which is the opposite of Mars's essence, which is to protect, to fight, right? So if your agenda is just, I just want to make sure that I have all the comforts in life and I'm taken care of, and how dare you talk to my mother like that, or how dare you, disrespect my family like that very heated, emotional. That's not Mars's essence, right? That's why it gets debilitated here, because here it cannot fight. It cannot fight. At the most, you will get like that passive aggressive kind of reaction. You know that. or fighting below the belt, like, how dare you do that to me? And when the person's back is turned, then you try to come after them. It can be a dirty kind of fighting. So it's like, you like, imagine if you're a soldier, right? It's the physical manifestation of the Mars. You don't want a soldier like that, right? You want a soldier who doesn't care where they have to live in order to fight. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be luxurious. It's not going to be cozy and cushy, and right. It just doesn't perform here. Although I will say, in the era that we live in, I would say a debilitated Mars actually is quite useful, whereas an exalted Mars is actually quite difficult. And I know, because I have an exalted Mars, it is quite difficult in the era that we live in, right? Because of how people operate. So it's a little bit, it's good to, there are plus points for this debilitated Mars. Because exaltation of Mars, right, it means fighting fair. It means using logic to win your battles, not manipulation. Right? Somebody with an exalted Mars, or even a Mars in Aries, is going to feel like, I'm like, why? Why should I manipulate? I'm fearless. I know what I want. This is how I'm going to get it. And if I have to fight for it, I will fight for it. Right? That's not how the Mars here operates. So it's not, an exalted Mars is not necessarily suited to Kali Yuga, the era that we're in. So with this placement, you will tend to manipulate, and you will use covert tactics to win your battles with a Mars in Cancer. And you are quite persistent. You will do anything to get your way. And this placement will make you protective of your family. In fact, you can be quite reactive, as I mentioned, if you or your loved ones are threatened in some way. In your early life, it's a difficult position. Some people may have suffered abuse. You may not have a good relationship with your mother. She may be quite controlling, for example. At the least, there would have been like a lack of family cohesiveness with this placement. Cancer is a water sign, and Mars is a fiery planet. You will not do well with handling emotions here, right? So emotionally, this placement can make you anxious, nervous, agitated, quick to anger. It can give volatile emotions, sudden burst of emotions. If it's an afflicted Mars, emotions can be abusive and toxic, making you manipulative to get your way. It is a good placement for business, actually. In fact, on the material level, it is a good placement, right? Because Cancer is material comforts. So you will go after material comforts. You're good at manipulating factors in your favor. You can be a good problem solver. You can be a good cook. Avoid fatty foods, though. Watch the food that you eat, because that can have an adverse impact on the heart, right? Cancer is our chest area. In home matters, it's good also, because it can you can easily access property deals. In fact, you could thrive in real estate. It can make you overly emotional, as I mentioned. It can make you a homebody. There may be too much attachment to your stuff, right? Like to your home, to your mother. You can cut corners, and you'll bend the rules. You'll circumvent the law and ethics to get your way. You can also be passive aggressive in your behavior. Important to see placement of moon to see how this will play out, right? Because the moon is the ruling planet. So if it is a strengthened moon, then it will manage some of this. Also check fourth house. Is it afflicted? Because then you can get more of the negative side of this placement. It's very important to do some kind of a breathing exercise, like pranayama type, with this, to relieve the problems that can come with this placement. Because it's not an easy one to handle, Mars in Cancer, or Mars in the fourth house, right? So take care of your mental health. For Leo, what if you have Mars in Leo? This is an excellent placement for Mars. I would say it's even better than Mars in Aries. And certainly it is easier than Mars in Capricorn. This is the royal sign of the sun, right? Its friend, the king. This is like the heart of a lion, right? So it gives immense courage and bravery, this Mars placement. You're loyal and you're generous with this position. You're good at coming to the rescue of others and can be charitable without expectation. You can, however, be egotistical and self-centered if you sense the other person has ulterior motives, right? You can be impatient when someone is in your way or there's obstacles in your way, but not in a brash way that you get with like the Mars and Aries. You can be confident. You're not afraid of any situation. You can be good with acting, creative skills. This makes you good at being in the limelight in some way and gives a dominant personality. At least this is like the aura that you project. You'll be good with performing arts, in politics, in sports. You'll be able to channelize the Mars energy in a positive way here. It's important to see the position of the sun to see how this will play out, right? With this placement, you may have had a difficult relationship with your father. Fifth house is Purva Punya, results of good karma. Being that there's a malefic here, there can be bad karma that can come to the surface with this placement, right? This can be connected to your children. This can just be a feeling of like not feeling lucky or fortunate, right? You'll have a lot of responsibilities with respect to your children, and you may feel overwhelmed. Or it could be a situation where you could not have children. Maybe you're childless, or you face difficulty in having children, right? This placement can also agitate the mind, similar to Mars in Cancer. It can lead to rash thinking and anxiousness. So how about Mars in Virgo? This is a difficult placement for Mars. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is not in harmony with Mars. With this Mars placement, you will not like to be told what to do, whether it is in your personal or whether it is in your professional life. You are logical and organized with this Mars placement. You can be detail-orientated. You can be critical. You can be argumentative, similar to Mars in Gemini. But you'll know how to solve problems. You can get overwhelmed with too many problems coming at you at once. You're good at dealing with like minute details, and you're good at research and going into depth with subjects. How effective you are depends on the dignity of Mercury, right? So we have to see that. It's a good placement for an academic career, right? Accounting, lawyering, or any career like where you have to examine details and analyze, right? You want to be agreeable, but you can come across as critical and petty at times. You can be a perfectionist and forceful towards others in this way. Similar to the Mars in Gemini, you may at times like pick unnecessary fights or argue about like petty matters, right? You're good at coming to others' rescue and helping with their problems. You need to be mentally stimulated in order to progress in life. You can also worry too much at times. It's excellent to channelize this pent-up energy into yoga, into gym, Yeah. Mars in Libra. This is Venus's sign, a place where Mars gets uncomfortable. Here's Mars is in a compromised position. Venus is the ruling planet, and so Venus's position tends to be like, you have to see that to determine the results. This is difficult relationship karma, right? With this placement. If badly afflicted, then there can be violence in a relationship in extreme cases. You can be prone to obsessive relationships, and you can be exploited also in relationships. It can give secretive relationships also. You do tend to be quite polite with others. And you seek perfection in a relationship partner. You can also be very charming with this placement, especially if Mars is receiving a benefic aspect. You tend to be like an endearing, like pleasing personality, which is an asset to mediate conflict. And that can make you a good negotiator as well. You like to fight for justice also with this placement. You have an inner fear of asserting yourself. You may even be fearful of it, actually. This placement gives low energy. It could be like possibly a low libido as well. As I mentioned, there are relationship difficulties, right? Because Mars represents a celibate. So there may be problems in fulfilling partner's desire, whatever that may be. Because you may not be that into it, actually. It could just be as simple as that. But again, I have to see where Venus is placed to get the full picture. You also may have trouble expressing your own needs and desires. And it can also play out in that way. So you might be considered quite aloof. Because your anger and frustration are hidden, this can lead to difficulties in establishing intimacy. So establishing intimacy can be an issue here. Which is also the case with, it can be also the case with Mars in Cancer. Family conflict can also be there with this placement. So Mars in Scorpio, powerful position. This is Mars's own sign and a familiar environment, though Mars is not necessarily comfortable in water signs, actually, right? To note that. There is a past life karmic factor here, right? So challenging past life karma is coming to the surface. This can especially be with like the men in the family. You have the ability to carry through with commitments, unlike Mars in Aries, which is more changeable. You can be quite willful, however, with this position. You're good at dealing with traumatic situations. You're quite independent with this position, similar to Mars in Aries. If afflicted, you can be negative, even toxic with your thoughts. And in this way, you will attract enemies, conflict, disrepute. It's a tough Mars placement, right? But it will give you the ability to overcome life's challenges. You can be forceful, dynamic, but your anger and aggression can go latent, like unexpressed, right? There's a tendency toward creating problems here. You may get restless if you don't have a problem to solve. You may also get addicted to chaotic situations, but you do have a tendency to keep a low profile. You tend to endure pain well unless there's an affliction to Mars. You can be vengeful, and you'll wait for the right moment to launch your attack, and it can be done in an underhanded way as well. In this way, you do hold grudges, and this can bring suffering, and it can impact your mental health, especially if you concentrate on dark thoughts. So this can be like a destructive signature, right? This placement does, however, give strong ambitions. You'll be logical. You'll be good at research. In this way, you can do well in your career, but you may overlook obvious solutions. You're able to have outstanding career achievements. You'll also be good at digging the truth, particularly with esoteric subjects. You can have a very good sex drive with this placement. Here it's important to check Ketu's placement to see how well this is working, because Ketu is co-ruler of Scorpio, right? A badly placed Ketu can enhance the negative qualities of this placement. If afflicted, this can make you very destructive. So it's important to trust, to release anger, to confront your fears. So, what if you have Mars in Sagittarius? Well, this is a good position for Mars, sitting in Jupiter's sign. Mars has an affinity with Jupiter and performs well here. Sagittarius is actually the real ground for battlefield. So Mars actually is quite comfortable here for that reason also. Here, of course, you can attract enemies. That is the karmic signature of Mars in Sagittarius. You're quite assertive with your ideas, with your beliefs, and you will defend them religiously. Your nature tends to be direct and forthright. You tend to be truthful. You tend to be righteous. Your wisdom and knowledge is your greatest asset. And this is the signature of a teacher, right? And so you can be inspirational in the way that you lead others, teach others. You can be good at coaching. You can be good at guiding others. Not only that, but you're one of those people who will be able to teach yourself new subjects without much guidance from others. Yeah. Important to see Jupiter's placement to see how this is working out. You can be skilled with philosophy. You can be a good lawyer, a good politician. You need to be on the go, and you like to feel free and unfettered at all times. You love to travel, and you can regenerate yourself through travel, through religious studies, through philosophy. If afflicted, there can be problems with deciding life path, career direction. So, Mars in Capricorn. This is, of course, the sign of Mars's enemy, right? Saturn. But here, Mars gets exalted. Now, this straight away should give you a hint about Mars's true nature. Yes? Mars likes a challenge. And in Capricorn, Mars will face lots of challenges. And there will be uphill battles at times. It is not an easy environment for Mars. So don't jump to the conclusion that Mars exalted. Wow, like, it's not like that. In fact, I would say the same thing for, Saturn's exaltation as well. Here you can have like very good organizational skills, discipline, patience, and you are practical. So yes, you are unfettered by conflict and challenge. But you do take a step back and think, is this even worth fighting about? Is it even worth it? Unlike Mars and Aries, they will just fight the fight. Whatever it is, they will go for it. Here Mars steps back and says, well, hang on. I know I can win. And I know I'm right. But what am I fighting for? Let's have a think about that. Right? You'll be hardworking, you'll be ambitious, you'll be determined with this placement. If you fail at something, you tend to have the energy to keep going. You will get up and dust yourself off and just keep going. And this is actually one of the more, I think, endearing qualities of Mars in Capricorn. The never say die, which is actually similar to Mars and Aries. To not give up, right? You're strategic here. You can be clever. You can find the right solution almost instinctively. This placement can also make you a risk taker. So it's a good placement for entrepreneurs or people who want to be independent. You're actually quite competitive with this position. You can also be ruthless, especially if there is a malefic with Mars. You tend to have very firm principles and follow the rules, unlike Mars in Cancer, which is why I said that Mars in Cancer is more suited to the era that we live in, where there are hardly any rules, right? and principles. I mean, that's quite old-fashioned, right, for the era that we live in. You can be quite strict with yourself and your loved ones, expecting them to be principled in the same way. And unlike Mars in Cancer, you know how to rough it. You know how to rough it. This is the sign of a soldier, right? A real soldier. And you know how to sustain yourself with very little. And you know how to be in top form with very little. Like you can perform, which is why, it's such an excellent placement if you are on a spiritual path, because this Mars will show you how to simplify your life, actually. And when you simplify your life, you actually eliminate a lot of burdens. You can sacrifice immediate comforts, that quick gratification. You can sacrifice that in order to achieve bigger, loftier goals. This placement can take you to the top of your career, your ambition, your goals. This is the sort of placement where you will write down your goals and achieve them one after the other, despite what is in your way. You're not discouraged by obstacles. In fact, they'll push you through. You prefer to work independently, but there can be a lack of work-life balance with this placement. You can be too much into work, like a workaholic. You'll find it hard to stop working. Your standards are too high at times. You're good at solving problems and can be helpful to others as well. But this placement does bring delay in success with relationships, with wealth creation. There can be struggles as well. You want to achieve big things in life. Yeah. So without a good Saturn placement, it's going to be difficult to achieve your ambitions. After all, it is a sign of Capricorn. It's Saturn's domain. So we have to look at what Saturn is doing here. If it's a well-placed Saturn, you can detach emotionally and you can perform the tasks ahead of you. But this placement can create lots of emotional ups and downs in life, right? Capricorn is a very dry environment, so it will dry up the emotions, and it will disengage from many relationships in this way. Maybe it's through a fight or a dispute, but more often than not, it's just a disconnect, a detachment. In this placement, Mars in Capricorn is very important to like keep on top of your physical fitness, right? To sustain yourself. So how about if you have Mars in Aquarius? Well, this is a more complex position, right? Because Rahu's involved, right? Aquarius is Rahu's sign. It can lead to dissatisfaction in life. You can be moving from one thing to the other, from one project to the other, from one job to the other. In fact, you may find it hard to stay committed to one thing. Like you can be easily distracted, right? It can make you obsessive, controlling. You can be prone to addiction. So watch again, like what is Saturn doing in the chart? Is it in a bad place, then that's more of a possibility. Due to Rahu's co-rulership, it's a Mars placement that can make you impulsive. With this placement, there can be financial ups and downs because you're drawn to risky investments, risky behavior. Depending on Saturn's position, risk-taking can pay off, right? It's a good placement for those that are into entrepreneurial activities. In the modern era, it's a useful Mars signature. You're determined and focused with this placement. You're forward-looking. You're good at solving problems using modern means, such as technology. It's a good placement for scientific and mathematical careers. You would be good at fighting for upright causes, including animal rights, and being involved with social movements. Emotionally, you may have difficulty expressing yourself, especially in intimate and sexual relations, similar to Mars and other signs. So what if you have Mars in Pisces? This is a sign of Mars's friend Jupiter, right? Water signs are normally difficult for Mars because Mars is more in sync with the fire element. In Pisces, this can make you a warrior for spirituality. You will take care of the underdog with this placement. You'll give your energy toward helping others. Because it's a fiery planet sitting in a water sign, this can cause agitated emotions. Your emotions can be disturbing, and you will be reluctant to show this side of yourself to others. You can also feel lost in a bubble at times. Jupiter's placement needs to be seen to understand how the signature is working for you. This placement can cause confusion with your life path and can therefore impact your career choices. Creative professions are good for you, with a creative career where you're expressing yourself well. And in this way, balancing out the Martian energy trapped in water sign, right? It could be dancing, singing, painting, martial arts, yoga. You can be a good guide, teacher, preacher. You'd be into walking and running, especially close to the beach or like a body of water, right? You can have conflict with your family with this placement. Living outside your birthplace is actually very good if you have Mars in Pisces. Pisces is a sign of seclusion, but also losses. So this can give low energy, like a drained feeling, right? So it's important to take time for solitude to manage this placement.